Hi guys, and welcome to Vertical 2 Music Theory. This is the third trimester of NCSSM's piano and guitar curriculum. And this trimester, we will be focusing on some basic analysis of music that's been written. So really, if you want to think of it this way, we're taking what we learned in linear theory and vertical theory and applying it to real music. You will be using all that you know about key signatures and intervals from the linear theory, and you'll really be using the vertical theory work that you did on diatonic analysis, Roman numerals, and understanding the major scale and the quality of the triads that are built on each step of the major scale. And we'll show you how that happens here today. Throughout the trimester, you'll be receiving various pieces of music like the one that I have in front of you here, and the goal is to write a Roman numeral theory analysis for each chord change within the piece of music. That sometimes is each measure, and more often than not, it's a Roman numeral for every measure, or perhaps even less than a measure in the music that you're looking at. So let's take a look at the process and see what we can do and make sure that you understand what I'm asking of you. The first thing that you're going to do here is to determine the key of the piece of music that we're looking at. And that starts by looking at the key signature. So if we take a look at this key signature, you know that you have one sharp, and from your work with the circle of fifths, you know that that means you're either probably going to be in G major or in E minor. Now the trick is to figure out, well, okay, which is it, and how do I know which it is? Well, usually that involves looking at the first and last measure of the piece. Way more often than not, the first and last measure of the piece are going to be they're going to be a triad that is the key of the piece of music. So let's take a look at the first measure. The first measure of the piece has a G in the left hand of the piano, that's the bass line. And this left-hand note, the lowest note that you see or hear, is going to really go a long ways to determining the triad that we're looking at and the inversion. So that's a G. Now we take a look at the right hand in the piano, and we see that we have a B, a D, and another G. So you ought to start thinking, okay, boy, we've got a G, a B, and a D. And then up here in the vocal line, you'll see that there is a B also. So now we have all G's, B's, and D's, and take a look at that really closely. You will see that that is a triad built on the note G. So knowing that we had one sharp in the key signature, and it's either going to be G major or E minor, that'll tell you that this is a 1 chord, and it's in the key of G major. Okay, so on your paper, I want to see that you've identified the key. I neglected to go to the last measure of the piece. We'll do that now, because that's going to also tell us a lot. And you'll see here that down in the bass line, if we sort of look backwards, G, B, D, G, G triad. And here, a B, a D, and a G. Sure enough, this is also a 1 chord. So this is very strong. We can tell that we're in the key of G major. Now I'm going to tell you that throughout the trimester, you're going to have more ones on your page than anything else. It's the tonic of the key, and in music, we want to hear the tonic. So in this case, we see a 1 at the beginning and the end of the piece. Now I want you to think about, well, what might be the next most common Roman numeral that you see? I'll bet you have a guess already. But let's go ahead and take a look at the second measure. And if we look at the second measure here, it looks almost identical to the first measure. G in the bass, B, D, G in the right hand of the piano, a G and a B here. That tells us that that's going to also be a G triad or a 1 chord. Now we get to something different. We look at the third measure of the piece. Our bass note, or our lowest note, is a D. You ought to start thinking, okay, what's the relationship of D to G? And then if you look in the right hand, you've got in the middle here, you've got a D, and you've got an F sharp above that, and a C below that. So, and up here in the vocal line, we've got a D. So it ought to start telling you, boy, that sure looks like a 5. D, F sharp, there's no A, and then there's a C. What's that C all about? So let's start by calling this a 5 chord. And that C is going to make a lot of difference because it really adds another triad above the 5th of the triad, D, F sharp, A, and another third above that is the C. And what that makes that is a 5-7 chord. We call that a dominant 7th chord, and it creates very strong pull back to the G. So that's a 5-7 chord. And the next chord that we look at, sure enough, D, F sharp, no A, but a C, and here an F sharp and another D, another 5-7 chord. Now just a little bit of a review here so that everybody is on the same page. I want to just take a second and remind you as we're looking at these that, that we are looking at a 1 chord in a major key. The 1 is major, the 2 is minor, the 3 is minor, the 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, 7, everybody should know, is diminished, and then we get back to 1. We're saying that we're in G major, so the G, B, D triad is going to be a 1 chord. A, C, E would be an A minor. A B triad would be a B minor. A C triad would be a major. And here's where we're getting here. I'm getting to this D. If we have a D triad, it's D, F sharp, A, and then that other note that we were seeing is the C. And basically we're just stacking that extra third above, at the top of the triad to give it that very strong dominant 7th feel. E would be minor, B would be diminished, and then that gets us, F sharp would be diminished, and then that gets us back to G. Okay, so that's just a little quick review of diatonic harmony and how it works. And I will tell you this, if you're not seeing any sharps or flats in the piece other than the key signature, all of the chords that you create, that you analyze, are going to fit right into that scheme. It's not until about the 4th lesson that we start seeing some accidentals. That changes things just a little bit. Okay? So that ought to give you a good start. Now as you go through, you ought to be pretty quick with figuring it out. And on this first one, you're going to see that there's a lot of 1s and 5s. So 1s will be the most predominant. 5s will be just about as many 5s as 1s. After that, what do you think will be the 3rd most predominant chord? I'll let you decide that as you continue with this and with other assignments. For now, a Roman numeral for every measure, as long as that's what's called for, as long as the chord doesn't change within the measure, and we should be good. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.